Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayamudhirayat.
Tato Jayamudhirayat.
Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu.
Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and Srila Prabhupada, the translator. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service unto pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental song, is established as an irrevocable fact. Fact, it's a fact. Only the facts. We're talking only the facts here. We're on chapter 11, Lord Krishna's entrance into Dwarka, and our verses to cover are 11 to 15. But of course, I want to say something about 10 too. So, Omaginati Mirandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chaksur Unmiditam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and I thought I was happy there. But Srila Prabhupada very kindly forced open my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. Therefore, I'm totally indebted to Srila Prabhupada and completely unable to repay the debt. But if I beg for service life after life, maybe there's a chance that I can do something. Hare Krishna. So thank you. Number 10. So, oh Master, if you live abroad the whole time, then we cannot look at your attractive face, whose smiles vanquish all our sufferings. How can we exist without your presence? Exactly, that was the one. Hold on. Okay. False alarm. Can you go to 9? Thanks. Oh, lotus-eyed Lord, whenever you go away to Mathura, Vrindavan, or Hastinapur and meet your friends and relatives, every moment of your absence seems like a million years. Oh, infallible one, at that time our eyes become useless, as if bereft of sun. So who's speaking that verse? Do you remember from your verses yesterday? Did you cover that verse yesterday or the day before? Ooh, that was a long time ago. It seems like it. Well, who can remember from the last yuga who spoke that verse? Anybody can remember? It was, yeah, I'll leave you. It was the residents of Dwarka. They're offering their prayers to Krishna, you know? So But the key, this verse seems like, a nice verse and everything, but it's a very essential verse for understanding Krishna's rasa pastimes. Because here, oftentimes when we hear about Krishna living in Vrindavan, then going to Mathura to kill Kamsa, etc., what does he say to the gopis when he leaves Vrindavan? I'll be right back. I'll be back in a few days. Just a few days. I'm just going to go to kill Kamsa, and I'll be right back. And it was years and years and years and years. Some calculated like 100 years before he again came back and saw the gopis. But this verse here, the number 9, says that he did go back. He did go back, but it's just not recorded chronologically. Anyway, that's a very essential verse. When you get to the 10th canto, they'll quote that verse a lot. In the meantime, for verse 11 for today, we'll do that one now. Okay? Oh, best of the screeners. Screamers? Screeners. So we're on 11. Okay. As Bhogavati, the capital of Nagaloka, is protected by the Nagas, so was Dwarka protected by the descendants of Vrishni, Bhoja, Madhu, Dasara, Artha, Kukora, Andhaka, etc., who are as strong as Lord Krishna. So those clans, those are different clans, descendants, family descendants, those dynasties here. Would you like to start to read the purport, Bruce? Huh? 11, yeah.
You want to do 11?
Nope. But thanks for that suggestion. That's okay. I hadn't thought of it that way. But anyway, Bruce?
The Nagaloka planet is situated below the Earth planet, and it is understood that the sun rays are hampered there. The darkness of the planet is, however, removed by the flashes of the jewels set on the heads of the Nagas, celestial serpents. And it is said that there are beautiful gardens, rivulets, etc., for the enjoyment of the Nagas. It is understood here also that the place is well protected by the inhabitants. So also the city of Dwarka was well protected by the descendants of Vrishni, who were as powerful as the Lord, insofar as he manifested his strength upon this earth.
Hare Krishna. So there's a lot of information in this verse. We don't have to go into all the details since we have a series of verses to cover. But Nagaloka, situated below the planetary system, so that it's giving, as we go on to second canto, third canto, we'll get a better understanding, a more clear understanding of how the different planets are situated in the universe. There's lower planetary system with various degrees of darkness in them, darkness and ignorance meaning. And then the middle planetary system, the earthly planetary system, which is in this semi-happy state and semi-miserable state. It's middle. It's, you can have a quote unquote nice life here. You can have some miseries here, but it's not all extreme misery, and it's not all extreme only sense gratification. Then the upper planetary system, there's more higher levels of enjoyment, takes more qualification to get there, pious credits and qualification. And then beyond that, there's the even higher planetary systems where the sages do their tapasya, tapaloka, janaloka, as gradually up to brahmaloka. So Nagaloka has a particular characteristic of being very dark. The sun is hampered there. But what was the light that was indicated that they get? Could you just say it a little louder?
The jewels.
Yes. On the snakes' heads, that somehow or other gives off a little bit of light there, and therefore. So Prabhupada would often use the example of that, a snake with a jewel on his head. He's actually more dangerous than a snake without a jewel. Why is that? Light is one of the reasons, but there's more, a deeper reason. Why a snake with a jewel is more dangerous. They can do that too. Yes, sir?
It's slightly more attractive.
That's it. They're attractive. One's attracted to the jewel, the glitter, and that's what we're unfortunately attracted to here, the glitter of quote unquote material happiness. It keeps us, but being attracted to the glitter on a snake's head means you're just going to get bit. Okay, we're zooming on. Thanks. Unless you have a comment or a question on that one. Okay, 12. We'll just do the English. Yeah. Would someone like to read the text? Yes, please. Can you pass the microphone? Thank you. Please go on.
The city of Dwarkapuri was filled with opulences of all seasons. There were hermitages, orchards, flowers, gardens, parks, and reservoirs of water breeding lotus flowers all over.
You want to go into the purport, please?
Perfection of human civilization is made possible by utilizing the gifts of nature in their own way.
So how does that contrast to life today? Any thoughts on that? Yeah, we exploit nature. We just exploit her to the max. And we think that that's progress. The more we can drill down in, the more we can pull out, the more they can, et cetera, then we think that's progress. Okay, continue, please.
As we find herewith in the description of its opulence, Dvarka was surrounded by flower gardens and fruit orchards, along with reservoirs of water and growing lotuses. There are no mention of mills and factories supported by slaughterhouses, which are the necessary paraphernalia of modern metropolis. The propensity to utilize nature's own gifts is still there, even in the heart of modern civilized man. The leaders of modern civilization select their own residential quarters in a place where there are such natural, beautiful gardens and reservoirs of water, but they leave the common men to reside in congregated areas without parks and gardens. Herein, of course, we find a different description of the city of Dwarka. It is understood that the whole Dhamma, or residential quarter, was surrounded by such gardens and parks with reservoirs of water where lotuses grew. It is understood that all people depended on nature's gifts of fruits and flowers, without industrial enterprises promoting filthy huts and slums for residential quarters.
Any comments on that or thoughts on that? Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, I said that, like, in the heart of a civilized man, like, they still want to rely on nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why all the CEOs have, like, beautiful lake houses. Yeah.
Yes, but did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, just that when we have industry, everyone wants to move to the city, but it's unnatural to live in such close quarters in such unsatisfactory small places and living conditions. So it's like disconnected from beauty of nature.
Thank you. Srila Prabhupada would often comment, he would say, it's like pigeonholes, apartment buildings. They just live in a small little pigeonhole. In some places that little apartment is very small. And I was talking to Kameshi just last night, and she's in New York City these days and looking for an apartment. $2,000 minimum, for, a little pigeonhole. That's amazing, huh? The anxiety, the suffering, the maintenance for such an unnatural situation that doesn't, you can, just a few months back, I was visiting the Brooklyn Temple, and it was like 4 days before I even saw the light of the sun. I was like inside the temple, and then, so finally I went up onto the roof and said, oh yeah, there's the sky. Of course, the building is much smaller than the other buildings in the area, so if you had to look up past the other skyscrapers, and you could see, oh yeah, there is still a sky, there's still air. But it hardens the heart. That's why it hardens the heart. So therefore, there's not only crime and dissatisfaction does not only exist in the cities. I don't mean to be so naive and say something like that, but still that situation hardens the heart. So therefore it's much easier to treat another human being in a rough way, in a mean way, in a condescending. It's just so, you get so removed. Yes, Prabhu.
God also uses words there like filthy huts and slums. And I think for many sitting here, they might not understand how literal Prabhupada is meaning that. In South Africa, millions, not hundreds, not thousands, but millions of people leave their rural villages to go to the cities because I think especially in Kali Yuga, things that glitter, these promises of a glamorous, glitterous city life really attracts people. But they just end up going, and they don't live in the city centers, but they live in like ghetto areas where they don't have brick houses usually. They have houses made of metal plates that they kind of nail together. They don't have running water. So it's very, very hellish. And again, there's millions of it.
Yeah. And it's happening all around the world. We can, might be more prominent at this particular time in that area, but you can see in the States, it's happening all over the place. Okay, let's continue, please.
Advancement of civilization is estimated not on the growth of mills and factories to deteriorate the finer instincts of human being, but on developing the potent spiritual instincts of human beings, and giving them a chance to go back to Godhead.
So that's another important statement. That's Prabhupada's whole mission, and we can relate that to the appearance of Advaita Charya, which by the time I start to talk about Advaita Charya, I'll forget this connection, so I'm going to say it now. So Advaita Charya, what was his purpose, to incarnate, was to facilitate the advent of Lord Chaitanya, who brought about a revival of this, of remembering that there's another life beyond this life, beyond city life, beyond this, beyond that, beyond factory life, beyond material existence. There's our eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. As Prabhupada says here, the finer instincts of the human being, to remember our eternal, constitutional, safe, ever increasing in happiness position as a servant of God that needs to be awakened. Anyway, you can go on.
Development of factories and mills is called ugra karma, or pungent activities, and such activities deteriorate the finer sentiments of human being and society to form a dungeon of demons.
Sheesh. Srila Prabhupada doesn't mince any words ever. He's such a, and it's kind of like, these are like, we're half sleeping or totally sleeping. It's just like someone throws a little bit of cold water on your face. It really, jolts you awake. Little phrases like that. A dungeon of demons. And we think we're happy here. Okay, so continue. Or would someone else like to continue? Although you're doing a great job. Yes, please.
We find herein the mention of pious trees, which produce seasonal flowers and fruits. The impious trees are useless jungles only, used to supply fuels. In the modern civilization, such impious trees are planted on the sides of roads. Human energy should be properly utilized in developing the finer senses for spiritual understanding, in which lies the solution of life. Fruits, flowers, beautiful gardens, parks, and reservoirs of water with ducks and swans playing in the midst of lotus flowers, and cows giving sufficient milk and butter are essential for developing the finer tissues of the human body. As against this, the dungeons of mines, factories, and workshops develop demoniac propensities in the working class. The vested interests flourish at the cost of the working class, and consequently there are severe clashes between them in so many ways. The description of Dwaraka Dham is the ideal of human civilization.
So many salient points here, I was thinking of the example. Can any of you remember? I'll give you a couple of hints of an incident that Srila Prabhupada would emphasize when there's a particular preacher was trying to speak to a class of people to tell them about if they don't believe in God, they're going to go to hell. And then he gave a description of hell. Does that ring any bells to anybody?
I remember the story once Christian preacher went to preach to the minor workers,
Yes.
and they were not being convinced because he was describing hell as dark and cold and limited. They couldn't relate to that. And
Yeah.
then he describes them, but there's in a hell there's no newspaper.
Yeah, they couldn't relate to it, but because that's the environment they lived in, you know, dark, damp, hellish, small, you know, uncomfortable. Well, what's so bad about that? That's where we work. We get our money. We get our money from doing that. Therefore, with that money, we can get food, and therefore, with the, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And then he said, "Oh, there's no newspaper. It's now you could change it and say, but there's no internet." And go, "Oh my God, I'm not going there. Oh my God, no cell phone towers. No, I'm not going there." You know, but still, and but it's even you can see even we can experience ourselves that, you know, we can stay in this big city of Gainesville, you know, but every now and then you gotta at least go out, go to the springs, go to, you know, go to the beach, go somewhere, go for a walk in the woods. And then what was Prabhupada saying the different characteristics between pious trees and impious trees are? Yes? Champak.
Trees give fruit and impious trees don't.
Yeah. And I just, you know, so I live on the Alachua temple property and I live in the back. So there's 120 acres there. And so a lot of people just go to the front. But in the back, you know, there's a few houses and fields. There's a field there that used to be, the cows used to graze in, that is completely overrun by blackberry bushes, you know, pricker bushes. And that's when you don't take care of your lawn, you'll get pricker bushes in Florida, meaning you'll get pricker bushes, you'll get that vine called devil's foot vine, which grows huge and has big stickers and pulls down trees. It gets so heavy it can pull down trees. And then you've got the oak trees that give 10 million quadrillion oak little acorns the squirrels love, and then they plant them all over the place. And then you get all these trees, and it's like, oh, this is what we're talking about. You know, nothing that is particularly, just like if you go to quote unquote natural Florida, where it's not cultivated and anything, and it's not cared for. It's like hellish. You know, it's full of prickle bushes and this and that and whatever. A great contrast. Okay, we'll go on then to 13. Jonathan, can you read? Is that all right? Again, another description of Dwarka, life in Dwarka.
The city gateway, the household doors, and festooned
Arches
along the roads were all nicely decorated with festive signs like plantain trees and mango leaves, all to welcome the Lord. Flags, garlands, and painted signs and slogans all combined to shade the sunshine.
And the short purport, please.
Signs of decoration in special festivals were all collected from the gifts of nature, such as the plantain trees, the mango trees, fruits and flowers. Mango trees, coconut palms, and plantain trees are still accepted as auspicious signs. The flags mentioned above were all painted with the picture of either Garuda or Hanuman, the two great servitors of the Lord. For devotees, such paintings and decorations are still adorned, and the servitors of the Master is paid more respects for the satisfaction of the Lord.
Okay, we'll go on for the sake of time. Text 14. Someone else would like to read? Maybe somebody in the back row? Yes, go ahead. Do you have a microphone? Yeah, it's coming. Thank you. So just in case you think that because there was plantain trees and mango trees and fruit trees and everything was in their parks and gardens, just in case you think everything was primitive, now we'll get another description of what was actually there also.
Okay. The highways, subways, lanes, markets, and public meeting places were all thoroughly cleansed and then moistened with scented water. And to welcome the Lord, fruits, flowers, and unbroken seeds were strewn everywhere.
Can you imagine that? They cleaned the roads with scented water, and usually they had big machines to do that. No, they had elephants with their trunks, and they would suck up a bunch of scented water, and then they'd spray it all around. So nice. Continue.
Report. Scented waters prepared by distilling flowers like rose and kiora were requisitioned to wet the roads, streets, and lanes of Dvarka Dhamma. Such places, along with the marketplace and public meeting places, were thoroughly cleansed. From the above description, it appears that the city of Dvarka Dham was considerably big, containing many highways, streets, and public meeting places with parks, gardens, and reservoirs of water, all very nicely decorated with flowers and fruits. And to welcome the Lord, such flowers and fruits with unbroken seeds of grain were also strewn all over the public places. Unbroken seeds of grain or fruits in the seedling stage were considered auspicious, and they are still so used by the Hindus in general on festival days.
Thank you. And our last verse of the day, another volunteer. Okay, go ahead.
Every door of the residential houses, auspicious things like curd, unbroken fruits, sugarcane, and full water pots with articles for worship, incense and candles were all displayed. The process of reception, I love this verse, according to Vedic rites, is not at all dry. The reception was made not simply by decorating the roads and streets as above mentioned, but by worshiping the Lord with requisite ingredients like incense, lambs, flowers, sweets, fruits, and other palatable eatables, according to one's capacity. All were offered to the Lord, and the remnants of the foodstuff were distributed amongst the gathering citizens. So it was not like a dry reception of these modern days. Each and every house was ready to receive the Lord in a similar way, and thus each and every house on the roads and streets distributed such remnants of food to the citizens, and therefore the festival was successful. Without distribution of food, no function is complete, and that is the way of Vedic culture.
Why don't you read that last sentence again?
Yes, Haribo. Without distribution of food, Jai Krishna lunch, no function is complete, and that is the way of Vedic culture.
Jai, thank you. So it's amazing, isn't the contrast between that simple, God-centered life and our hustle and bustle of modern civilization for material advancement, and where no one's happy and nothing's pretty and nobody has anything. Yet obviously they had so much fruits and flowers and curd and milk products, they didn't mind decorating their houses on the outside with those things. Nowadays, in order to see those fruits, you have to go to the grocery store, you have to wait in the line when they're, different churches or different kitchen pantries are distributing, free food to who? The people who can't afford even to buy food, or enough food, sufficient food, nutritious food. Is there anything that's nutritious? Anyway, as a contrast to that and our hard endeavor for getting a few little coins to try to live with, and their God-centered abundant life, it makes a very strong argument for becoming Christian. One more strong argument for becoming Christian consciousness, no? Okay, so any other comments or yes, go ahead, please.
I just want to say a quick comment about this verse.
I love this verse so much because when I first moved to Bhakti Center many years ago, my first service was managing the reception desk. And we picked a few verses from the scripture, like about reception for training the receptionist. And this is one of the ones that we picked because it talks about how, like, yeah, most places when you walk into a reception area now, it's like so official, so dry, like not welcoming, no heart. And this verse really describes in such a beautiful way, they're welcoming Krishna, but the thing is, Ranaswami always says this, that, every single person who comes to the temple is Krishna's special guest. So this mood of reception and welcome and celebration and festival should be there for every single person who comes inside the temple. And then when we read the last line, we put some luglus. So everybody who came got like some prasadam. And so it's just so beautiful, this culture of welcoming guests in Vedic society.
Yes, thank you. And philosophically speaking, what it's stressing is it's stressing personalism. We're persons, and we've gotten, because of our modern city life, whatever materialistic life, that covers all the different. We've become so impersonal that even Prabhupada, I remember when Prabhupada back when I was like in my 20s, 100 years ago, when there was, I might even a little before that, but anyway, when there was the first publicized attack of a person in New York, that person was attacked on the street, and everybody just walked by because they didn't want to get involved, and when it was like the first, now it's like, of course you're not going to, who knows what's going to happen, but it was such a shocking thing to Srila Prabhupada, that impersonalist result of living in situations like that, where you're only thinking of I, me, and mine, 24/7, that it's such a shock, in contrast to greeting everybody, seeing with equal vision that they're parts and parcel of Krishna, they're come here for a special, let them get the most benefit by coming into the temple, even for a few minutes or whatever. And it's just refreshing, just so refreshing. Anyway, a few thoughts on that. Hare Krishna. Advaita Charya, we can't underestimate or neglect the importance of Sri Advaita Charya's appearance day today. Hare Krishna. So Advaita Charya, just, if you want to speak, hopefully you'll read from the tattva point of view, from Chaitanya Charitamrita and the chapters of Chaitanya Charitamrita, the beginning chapters, where Krishnadas Kaviraj gives a elaborate description of the absolute truth explanation of why who the 5 members of the Panchatattva are, and what their position is, and what their Shakti is, and what their this is and that is. To understand Advaita Charya's position is, on the technical level, it takes a bit of understanding of rasa, of relationships, but it also takes an understanding of tattva, knowledge. So the 5 members of the Panchatattva, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and Advaita Charya, they are, Lord Chaitanya obviously is Krishna himself, Radha Krishna combined. Nityananda is Balaram, Vishnu Tattva, and Advaita Charya also is Vishnu Tattva. The other members, Gadadhar and Shivas, they're Jiva Tattvas, especially empowered Jiva Tattvas. But so to understand those different categories of nature takes a bit to digest to all of those. So I thought, since I haven't digested that totally fully anyway, you can't speak above your head, but just to Lord Advaita Charya's pastimes. He has some wonderful pastimes, again, stressing personality. He has such an interesting personality. And perhaps you have some favorite recollections or favorite stories and pastimes of Advaita Charya that we can also share together. So Advaita Charya, he, at the time before Lord Chaitanya advented, or actually let me go this way. When Krishna advented, or actually, hold on, even a little step before that. when the earth was overburdened with the bellicose forces of numerous kings, and she went to Lord Brahma, she took the shape of a cow, personified. She took the shape of a cow and went to Lord Brahma and prayed for relief from all the stress that was caused by these kings that were fighting all the time. Lord Brahma and the other demigods then together approached the ocean of milk, where they could offer prayers to the Lord for help, because Lord Brahma thought, this is too big for me to figure out by myself. Let me pray to the Lord for help. Then, so at that time, when the Lord was petitioned by the demigods and Lord Brahma, he said, okay, it's time for me to advent. It's the time, the due course of my scheduled incarnations is coming up. So I will come. So you people, all the demigods, should take birth in the Vishnu dynasty, in the Yadu dynasty, to help facilitate the pastimes. So there was an orchestration of, there was planning, orchestration of different demigods took birth in different situations. Some came much before Krishna to establish a certain atmosphere that he could perform his pastimes in. So similarly with Lord Chaitanya, before Lord Chaitanya's appearance, Advaita Acharya is there, and he's seeing the condition of this area, Navadvip area, which is a center of learning, a center of Vedic learning. Many scholars lived in that area. But the situation had degraded to such, in one sense, I'm going to use the word mechanistic application of the philosophy that they were following, just like Karma Kanda. The Karma Kanda system is how to live piously in the material world so that your situation is more comfortable. You live piously, you follow the rules and regulations of the Lord. If you follow these sacrifices for advancement, then you can get a nice living situation. You can get a lifelong life. You can get opulences, etc., if you follow these processes. So people were following them and forgetting the goal. The goal isn't to live nicely here in the material world. That's not the goal of the Vedas. The goal of the Vedic literature, is to actually understand that this material world isn't our home. That a real ultimate position is to return home back to the supreme service of the Lord. But if you get absorbed in trying to live comfortably in the material world and you forget the goal you're never gonna be able to live comfortably in the material world. Although if you live in a pious way, you can live with less stress and less discomfort. That's totally true. But ultimately, life is temporary. It's going to end somehow or other, sooner or later. And our real position is our eternal position in the spiritual world. So Advaita Acharya was seeing that the people were becoming so degraded in the sense that they were just doing the ritualistic ceremonies to be happy in the material world. And nobody was developing that innate Krishna bhakti that's in the heart, love for Krishna, glorification of Krishna, that he became very discouraged. Advaita Acharya became very discouraged and thought, I can't tolerate this. I can't stay in this atmosphere of, godlessness, more or less. Although it wasn't like our godlessness, okay, not the same level, but still, not understanding the supreme goal. And so he began his sacrifice of calling the Lord to come. It's beyond me, even though he said, I will, Advaita means I'm not, I have a special potency. My name will be perfected if I can call the Lord to come down and rectify the situation. So he began his worship of a Shalagram Shila, had a little Shalagram Shila, and he would worship every day with Ganges water. And what was the other ingredient? Tulsi leaves. Tulsi leaves. Because that simple offering is very pleasing to the Lord. Okay, so, and he would loud calling. It's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, loud calling of the Lord's holy name. so loud that it broke the covering of the universe, so loud and transcendental that it pierced through to the spiritual world, so loud that the Lord said later on, Lord Chaitanya said, Nara, you came and woke me. I was sleeping on the serpent, on Seshanag, and you woke me from my slumber, asking me to come here to this material world. So, so therefore I have come. So that's how Lord Advaitacharya's cries were so transcendentally potent and sincere that they called the Lord to come. So Advaitacharya obviously was much older than Lord Chaitanya. He was even older than Lord Chaitanya's father, you know. So he appeared before Lord Chaitanya in order to facilitate his coming. So, and another thing that I always appreciate about the dealings of Lord Advaitacharya, Lord Chaitanya, Advaitacharya, and Nityananda, that they were very personal and individual. Their personality wasn't stifled. It wasn't it wasn't stereotyped. You know, they were very unique individuals, and they had very unusual relationships. Can anybody remember some dealings of Advaitacharya and Nityananda Prabhu that might come under these categories? Any particular? Yes, Jonathan. A food fight. Yes, they did. They had a food fight one time. One time, the circumstance was one time Advaitacharya had asked Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda to come to his house for a festival, for a feast. And Lord Chaitanya agreed. And he particularly mentioned to Lord Nityananda before he entered the house, can you please behave yourself when you're here today? Advaita, Avaduta Nitai had a tendency to be unusual at times, you know. So he said, can you please behave yourself? And Lord Nityananda feigned a little shocking, that he was shocked and offended. What do you mean? I'm always taking care of myself and behaving properly. Lord Chaitanya, if it was me, I would have described it, rolled his eyes. Yeah, right. Anyway, okay, so he comes to Lord Advaitacharya. This is right shortly after Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, I believe. You know, so Lord Chaitanya said, "Don't forget, I just eat really simply." And Advaita said, "No worries. I just made very simple things. No worries." So when Chaitanya and Nitai entered Advaitacharya's house, they saw mounds of prasadam, opulent prasadam, piled on beautiful banana leaves in various arrangements. And then there was three plates put aside, 3 empty plates for some people to sit at. So Lord Chaitanya assumed that he wasn't supposed to sit in front of the mounds of prasadam. He took a plate, he sat down where there was an empty plate that they could just put a little bit on, you know. And Lord Nityananda comes in and says, and he looks at this huge array of prasadam. Lord Chaitanya's mentality is, this is too much, this is too opulent, I'm taking sannyas, I shouldn't eat like this. Lord Nityananda's mentality was, I've been fasting for 3 days. I can't remember exactly how many days. Sorry. I've been fasting for some time, and I thought today I would break my fast. And instead, you've just given me this little bit of prasadam. Calm down. Anyway, so then they're eating, and then Lord Nityan and Advaitacharya is coercing or cajoling or prompting Lord Chaitanya to eat more, eat more, eat more. Lord Chaitanya is trying to say, more or less, back off, back off. And Nityananda is like complaining that he's not getting enough. And he finally takes some rice that's on his plate and he throws it at Advaitacharya. I was going to break my fast, but still I'm going to have to fast with this little bit of prasadam. And some of the rice bounces from the ground and hits Advaitacharya's dhoti. And he starts to dance. Hari bol, hari bol, hari bol. It's just an interesting and unusual little rasa between them. And it's exhibited many times. There's another time when Lord Chaitanya, at a certain there's a certain ceremony in preparing for the Rath Yatra festival when they have um, the goddess of fortune comes to a lake and they have different things that they do. So Lord Chaitanya with his followers was watching that ceremony, and then afterwards they were bathing in the lake, and they were just like if you go in a Krishna house outing to the spring or stuff, everybody's just sits there in the water and meditates. Wrong, right? No, you're splashing, you're drowning, you're trying to get the other. You get the person who doesn't want to go into the water because it's too cold for them. You're splashing them, you're dragging them in, you're throwing them in. I can see. Yeah. Then you pick them up, and then they're hesitant, and someone comes around behind them and picks them up and throws them in the water or whatever. Not even that I was there. I didn't see it, but I can imagine it. So similarly like that. So they started doing a splashing game between them, and different people paired up. And at one point, Nityananda pairs up with Advaita Acharya, and that's going to be a little ruckus. There's going to be some problem there. So Nityananda is splashing it, and he gives him a really, really hard splash of water that goes right in his eyes. And I'm sure you've experienced that too on your outings at the springs or ocean. And the water directly in your eyes really stings and hurts. So Advaita Acharya was like, "Whoa, what's going on? Who invited this person here? He's so unusual. We don't even know his caste. We don't even know what his family is, and this and that." And they had this wonderful joking relationship. But one interesting takeaway from that is in Krishnadas Kaviraj's explanation. He goes into saying some people would take sides then, because they would exchange between Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Acharya. They would exchange what appeared to be critical words. They would criticize each other. And so let's just say a person was particularly attracted to Lord Nityananda, and when he would hear the critical words that Advaita Acharya would say, he or that person might be offended on behalf, or think that they're offended on behalf of Lord Nityananda, that he's criticizing my Lord. And similarly, some people that would hear Nityananda's criticism of Advaita Acharya, if they were particularly devoted to Advaita Acharya, they could possibly be offended or take sides or whatever, and therefore think, I don't like that Nityananda. He's not nice to my Lord, or similar, or Advaita Acharya. But Kaviraj Goswami says there, if you take the side of one and criticize the other, then you're the loser. You're the loser in bhakti, because you don't understand the transcendental relationship. Now, taking that on a personal level and on our personal experiences, sometimes when you see, every now and then, right, devotees disagree. Doesn't happen very often. And it's usually not very severe. And usually they don't go on the internet and criticize each other. Nothing like that. But if you're in a situation that you observe that that's going on, and then you take the side of one thinking this person's right and this person's offensive, then you lose credits. You lose some of the bhakti credits. And I think of that in my case. Like if I had been there, I would probably be siding with one, thinking the other one's wrong, and missing the whole point, and have it detrimental to my advancement in Krishna consciousness. So that's a very important point to understand, that oftentimes, and it's not that we can say that the disagreements between devotees these days are necessarily lila or pastimes, but at the same time, we should be very cautious in our approach to disagreements between devotees, and even if there's a philosophical truth that is presented stronger on one side than the other side, still be very cautious on how you approach that, not in a critical, demeaning way, but in a way, but better to try to understand the situation, not be critical, not be judgmental, not be, practice. It's hard. It's very hard, because the immediate thing is to be drawn to a side of an argument and, see if we can get might makes right to come shine forth again, but just be cautious on how we present things, how one wants to try to clarify an issue is a different thing than how one wants to push another person down so that they can see that they're in a higher position or a better understanding. But if we approach it with caution, more like, can I just try to understand a little better? And, like that. It's more conducive for our own spiritual progress and the spiritual progress of the people involved. Some other, maybe some of your, from your readings, other pastimes of Advaitacharya that you remember? How about Amoga? Can anyone tell us the story of Amoga's pastime with Advaitacharya and Lord Chaitanya? And you remember that story? You remember who Amoga is? Okay, that's important. Amoga was son-in-law. Okay, technicality that I'm not. Anyway, he was Lord Advaitacharya had invited Lord Chaitanya to his house again for prasadam, and again with the same pretense of, I just made a little something or other and come and take, And again, he had cooked a huge amount, and Sita Takaran. It was, yeah. Are you looking it up? Thank you. Okay. Okay. He had cooked a lot, so he was serving Lord Chaitanya a lot, and he was encouraging. Now just take a little. You don't have to eat all of it. I'm just going to put some here. You just take a little bit. But every time Lord Chaitanya would take a little bit of the preparation that he had served him, Advaitacharya would put more on his plate of the same preparation. So he had lots of different preparations, and he was trying to please, Advaitacharya and his endeavor, and Sita Takarani, Advaita's wife, their endeavor, appreciate their endeavor for making nice prasadam. And Amoga had come, and he, Advaitacharya knew that Amoga was critical of Lord Chaitanya, so he was very careful to make sure that he wouldn't slip in. So, but while he was serving the prasadam, Amoga slipped in anyway. While Advaitacharya was engaged in serving Lord Chaitanya's prasadam, Amoga slipped in anyway. And then he said, "What's going on here? Look at this so-called sannyasi eating enough food. He's got enough food on his plate for 10 people. And he's a sannyasi?" And that kind of like stopped Lord Chaitanya from eating. But that also infuriated Advaitacharya, because Advaitacharya, had invited Lord Chaitanya as his guest to serve him very nicely at his house out of his love for Lord Chaitanya. And Amoga is there creating this disturbance. So Advaitacharya looks around with fire in his eyes, and he sees a stick in the corner, and he takes the stick and he starts to chase after Amoga to beat him. And Amoga skedaddles out of there as fast as he can, and because he's younger, he manages to escape the beating of Advaita at that time. But then Advaita comes back, and he's feeling such remorse that here I've invited Lord Chaitanya to my house, and in the process of his eating, Amoga criticizes him, and I had invited him here. He's like, and he's so apologetic, and Lord Chaitanya is like, "It's okay, it's not a big thing, don't worry about it, don't get upset. Well, Amoga's Amoga, we're fine, you're fine, And then Lord Chaitanya in due course of time excuses him. But Advaitacharya's, it's Advaitacharya's brother-in-law, a son-in-law, because he says, tell my daughter that she should relinquish her husband, because that was her husband. Amoga was the husband of Advaita's daughter. Thank you. Okay. Anyway, the point being that she should relinquish her relationship, not if you even a little as little familiar as we are with the Vedic culture, we know that that's not a recommended procedure, hardly ever. So it was so serious that he said that she should do that. So the next day, Lord Chaitanya inquires from his servant, how's Advaita doing? He said, he's fasting. Why? Because he feels like he's offended you. And what's happened with Amoga? Amoga's been struck, I don't remember with what disease, cholera? Cholera. He's about to die of this high fever from the cholera. And so Lord Chaitanya immediately rushes over to Amoga and he puts his hand on his chest and he says, why has this envy, why, there's no place for envy in a Brahmin's heart. Why has this envy found residence in your heart? Give up your envy, Amoga, and arise and chant. And Amoga, by the touch of the Lord, is completely purified of his offensive mentality. And am I telling the story all wrong? Because it was Advaita Charya, right? Okay. I'm like thinking, what? Cross-referencing my stories. I'm sorry. Don't put this one on the internet, okay? Okay. Anyway. Okay. Do you have comments there that she's telling the story all right? Anyway. Any other? Yes, Jonathan, please save the day.
I've been wondering for myself another cross-reference. I was thinking about in the Bible when that John the Baptist is in the desert and he's preparing for Jesus of Nazareth's return.
Mm-hmm.
And basically he's got like a congregation out there, and he's doing a lot of fasting. It says locust and honey is what he's eating, but apparently there's some kind of Hebrew translation where it's carob and honey. So we could probably say if they were holy men, they were vegetarians. That's not a far stretch. And then basically the congregation, some of them are just like curious, and some of them truly believe that he knows that the Messiah is going to come. So that's what he's prophesizing. And then that's where Jesus appears from his last unknown pilgrimage. We don't really know where he was. There's some historical evidence to say he traveled around to Egypt and India. But yeah, Christians, modern day Christians, do not like that view. So anyway, then he baptizes him. He's the first. He baptizes him before he starts his mission, and that's when Jesus sees the dove descending from his spiritual world as the Holy Spirit, and then he takes off and starts collecting disciples. And so anyway, so I've been thinking that Advaita Acharya kind of reminds me of John the Baptist, because he's a saintly person that knows the importance of the Lord coming. He's doing all of his prayers and tapasiyas and sacrifices and letting everybody know that he's coming, and that his prayers were strong enough to make it.
Yeah, there's a correlation there, true. There's a similar setting of the scene, preparing the grounds for future preaching. Yeah. I was just thinking of a different story, of Srila Prabhupada before he came, after he had met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, still a householder in India, still working, but meditating on the instruction of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj to preach preach to the English-speaking world the glories of Lord Chaitanya. So he's meditating on that, but he's still entangled, and he would go on the weekends. We were just reading that little story this morning at the temple. He would go on the weekends to the temple of Advaita Charya in Navadvip, where Advaita Charya used to live in that area. Advaita Bhavan. He would go there and he would sit at the back of the temple and he would just chant his japa, And so this remembrance was told by one of the pujaris who had served in that temple for many, many years. So even he was there in the 30s and 40s when Prabhupada would come there and chant in the back of the temple. He didn't, Srila Prabhupada didn't engage with people or talk to people. He just would sit in the back and he would chant, and then then he would go away. But the pujari had noted how Prabhupada would be so deeply absorbed in his japa, while he was chanting there. And then he would come regularly regularly. And then there was a period where he wasn't coming at all. And time went by, and then an elderly gentleman came in saffron robes and sat in the back of the temple and was chanting again. And this time, his chanting was bringing tears to his eyes. And so the pujari, so at the end, at a certain point, the pujari goes up to this gentleman and says, I remember you from before. It was Srila Prabhupada. Now he had taken sannyas, and he had come back to this Advaita Bhavan temple right before he gets on the Jaladuta, right before he comes to New York. And Prabhupada's there. And so the pujari doesn't know anything about Srila Prabhupada's life or anything at that particular time, but he sees the man chanting in his saffron robes and crying in the back of the temple room. And he approaches him. I remember you. Who are you? And he said, he said, I'm the insignificant servant of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. My name is Abhaya Charanarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami, and I've been given a most impossible task by my spiritual master to preach to the English-speaking world. It's a most impossible task. So I've come here to beg Advaita Acharya's mercy. I've come here to beg his mercy and empowerment that I might be able to fulfill this impossible mission. So Srila Prabhupada's obviously the empowered preacher, etc., but he has that connection with Advaita Acharya, who loudly called Lord Chaitanya to come, and Lord Chaitanya to come and establish the Yuga Dharma for this age of the chanting of the holy name. And Srila Prabhupada has a very, very important role in that Yuga Dharma by bringing it out of India to an area of the world where no one had heard anything about Krishna or religious principles, or the Vedic principles to say. And he was going there and begging for Advaita Acharya's blessing, and obviously got a lot of Advaita Acharya's blessing. So there's a connection there with Srila Prabhupada and that and Advaita Acharya's mission of bringing Lord Chaitanya to the world and bringing Lord Chaitanya's mission to the Western world. So those are a few little instances, many more. And now as soon as I go home, I'm going to check on if I told that story. I probably did. It was, as soon as you said that, I thought, anyway, Hare Krishna. That was a very feeble attempt, sorry. Glories to Srila Prabhupada, glories to Sri Advaita Acharya Prabhu Ki Jai. Hari Rama. And today's a happy fast day.